Okay, so T6, case problem 2, we're going to build this table, this entire Sudoku puzzle, right? It is 10 squares by 10 squares. The Sudoku puzzle itself is 9, but we also have the header on the top and the header on the left side. Okay, so I have this as the finished example, so we know what it's going to look like. And I am going to open my Sudoku HTML in a new tab so that I can have more room. So that's the starting point. There's the finish point. And this is where we have to start. So we have to program all of that Sudoku puzzle, but nothing else, okay? And something I need to point out here is in the introduction, if I zoom this all the way up, this picture, that's where we're going to get these number values that go in there, okay? In one of the middle instructions, it says to put all those numbered values in. It says you have to get it from this picture on the first page of the case problem, okay? So that is going to be a little tedious when we get to there. Something else I want to point out that I found out just recently is some of the case problems have this file area opened and some start with it closed. If you click this folder, you can open and close it, and you can give yourself a little bit more room to work, okay? I found that very useful because this takes up about a quarter of the screen. Okay, so I always like to get started by, I read the introductory, so I know a little bit about basically the client, okay? The client in this case is the Japanese Puzzle Factory, okay? They have a website and I need to modify it, okay? Just like I do when I'm working on an actual website outside of school, if I don't know anything about the client, I'm not going to do a very good job because I won't know what their needs are. I won't know what their goals are. So I'm pretty familiar with Sudoku. I'm not very good at it, but I do like to do a Sudoku sometimes, and I know what they are. So, it's just not a learning curve there, really. It's just it's a table with a bunch of numbers in it. Okay, if you've never played Sudoku before, it's great. It's a fun puzzle game that you play one person. You have to fill in all the boxes with numbers 1 through 9, and make sure that you get 1 through 9 in every row and every column and every 3 by 3 grid, and they've color coordinated everything here. Okay. We're not going to program this, not in this assignment. We won't be programming this to actually do anything. We're just making a table that has this in it. That's it. Programming this to do something, maybe that's something that the next class after this could do. DM 130, perhaps. Also, the instructions always are going to tell you, and I advise you to do the same thing, as look at the HTML code and see what we have to work with when we start. So in our HTML head, we already have the viewport meta tag. Okay, in T5, we had to do that ourselves. In T6, it's already there. We already have a couple of style sheets. In T5, we had to do that all the time or very often. In T6, it's already done for us. So that's nice. We have a header and a navigation at the top. And it's already coded and working. So we don't have to do anything there. The next thing here, we have this blank section, or a section has nothing in it, that's going to be where we have to put our table. Okay. And then after that is an article that has some instructions on how to play Sudoku. And then there is a footer and it has a lot of navigation there. Okay, so that would be similar to the navigation and T5 case problem review. That looks like it's similar to that. But we don't have to do anything with any of that, only the section area. That's our primary focus for this assignment. So I'm going to continue on to our first steps. Okay, first step with many of these is to put your name and date. I usually don't do that. I'm gonna go ahead and do that today. All right, and I even had a typo in my own name. I do a lot of typos. 2020, 10, 5. Okay. That's in the HTML, and it wants us to do the same thing in the CSS. I'm going to skip that because you don't actually get graded on your name in there. You should put your name in there, though, on the chance that you want your grade overridden. It's important that it actually has your name in it and not someone else's name. Doesn't happen very often, but it's not completely unheard of. Okay, so linking the CSS file. We do have to link sudoku.css. Okay, we have reset and we have styles, but we don't have sudoku.css linked already. So what I will do, okay, again, the dry programming method, don't repeat yourself. I'm going to copy and paste a different link and change the name. Okay, so I just copied styles.css and I put in sudoku.css. And I'm going to refresh this page. Probably not going to change anything because we don't have a Sudoku area yet. Okay. But I can get my, oh no, that's not even a checkbox yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. So linking the CSS file, there's not even a checkbox for that. They just tell you to do it. And then if I would have read this blue box, okay, I encourage you all to read these blue boxes. I skipped it and it told me I won't be tested on this step. Okay, creating the table is the first step that I actually am going to get tested on. Within the section element, and I kind of already identified it because I saw there was an empty section. We're going to insert a table element, and that will be used to display the Sudoku puzzle. Give the table element the class name of Spuzzle. Okay, Sudoku puzzle, Spuzzle. Add a caption to the Spuzzle table containing the text Sudoku. So I'm going to make a table. Okay. And I'm going to open and close the table tag. I'm going to adjust my alignment so that it does line up. All right. It's not necessarily important in HTML, but it is important in some programming languages. I'm very used to having things line up. They want me to say the class name equals Spuzzle. So table class equals Spuzzle, close the table. That is the only instruction on this step. All right, so nothing difficult on the first one. They just want us to get started. And I can create my table. Should get, oh, nope. Did I miss? Oh, I did miss. I forgot to put the caption in here. Okay, if you miss one step, okay, so the caption, just like any other tag, the caption tag, you're gonna open it, close it, and then put just the text in the middle. All right, if I refresh the page, you can see that I do have the word sudoku as a caption so far. And that was the only thing that I missed from that instruction. Okay, please read the instructions thoroughly. Otherwise, you'll have a mistake just like I made. Okay, so table header next. Create a table header row group. Okay, so this is going to be the T head, and I'm going to have a row inside with all the table headers. That's the table header row group, is the T head. Contain a single row. The row should display 10 heading cells, 10 THs. The first heading cell should be blank, and the remaining 9 cells should display the digits 1 through 9. And this is going to be this first row across the Sudoku table. The first table heading is blank, and then I'll have the numbers 1 through 9. So we're going to create that. Right below the caption, I'll have a table head group first. And I'm going to close that. I'm going to do that before I put anything in it. Okay, it is a good idea to open and close these things before you fill them in, because sometimes you get carried away when you fill them in and you forget to close it at the end. And I have 10 things to put in here. And so by the time I finish all 10, I might have forgotten to close this. Oops. All right. Okay, so inside the table head row group is going to be a single row. And inside that row are 10 THs. The first one is empty. And I'm going to copy and paste 9 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I'm going to plug the numbers in. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Remember, we're using the dry method. Don't repeat yourself. Copy and paste is your friend, but don't forget to change everything that needs to be changed when you copy and paste. Okay, so I have my table header row group, that's T head, a single row inside because our header is usually comprised of a single row, and 10 cells. First one's blank, number the other ones 1 through 9. If I take a look at this page so far, that's what I have. It is not the right width. It doesn't look fancy. We've not done any CSS yet, so that's why. It's going to look pretty empty. If I were to inspect this, all right, we're going to highlight all these. This first empty cell has a 0 width because it's empty. All right, it won't get a width until we start programming more of the table in, and each column starts getting its own width. That one will get some width there because the width of columns does carry forward up and down. Let's see if I can get a good check mark for the table header. Okay, that one wasn't so bad. Table body is going to be one of the biggest, most difficult steps. Okay, so I'm going to take it one step at a time and go very slowly because there's a lot going on in here. And I think this is the step where we're going to build the complete rest of this table, minus the numbers in there, but a space for the entire rest of the table. All right, so very slowly, one thing at a time, create a table body row group containing 9 table rows. Let's do that first. I'm not even going to finish the whole sentence. I'm just going to do one thing at a time. T body, row group. Let me see if I can T body. And I got my alignment better that way. Okay, so I have my table body row group, 9 table rows inside of this. Okay, there's 1. Why is it not 10? Nine table rows with the first cell in each row contain a heading. Oh, just 9 rows. Okay. So we're going to do, we've done the first row. That was the table header. And we're going to make 9 more rows. And we haven't put anything in them yet. Okay. 1 row I've copied and I'll paste 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so I have 9 rows. The first cell in each row contain a heading cell displaying the letters I through H. So in each row, I'm going to make a table heading cell and put the letters A through I in each one. A. Okay. And this is going to be, so far we're just making all the rows down, but we're only putting 1 column in each one so far. Okay. And okay, 1 A through I, 1 cell in each one is just the heading cell. So I'm going to copy and paste, and what I want to copy and paste, because my spacing is like this, I want to copy and paste perfectly in between the beginning and the end of this table row, so that when I paste it, I don't have to adjust my spacing. And I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up, because each time I paste, it's going to shift everything down. And if I start at the top, then it's going to shift the next thing down. But if I start at the bottom, it's going to, the things that shift down are things I'm not concerned with right now. So now I just have a whole bunch of A's, and I need to go in and change them to the correct letter, A, B, C, D, and you'll see the integrated development environment, the IDE, is popping up information for me. None of that matters to me at the moment because I'm only typing in letters. I'm not trying to make code. Okay, so I have A through I. So all of this that barely even fits on my screen is just this first sentence in the instruction. The next part of the instruction, very slowly here, after the initial table heading cell, in the first, 4th, and 7th rows of the table body row group, insert 3 table data cells spanning 3 rows and 3 columns each. Altogether, these 9 data cells will store the 9 3x3 boxes that are part of the Sudoku puzzle. So It sounds a bit confusing. It sounds kind of terrible, but what is actually going to happen right now is, oops, each one of these green and gold areas is actually going to be its own 3x3 table. So we'll have a table inside of a table. We're actually going to have 9 tables inside the one master table. And we're going to end up using column span and row span. So we'll put a table here and we'll tell it to span 3 columns and 3 rows. We'll put a table here, tell it to span 3 columns and 3 rows. Okay. In order to do that, first we're just going to put the table in, and then we'll draw it and make sure that it spans 3 columns and 3 rows once we've typed it in the first time. So they've told us which ones to do. The first, fourth, and seventh rows. Of course, this is a bit difficult because the first, fourth, and seventh rows are labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So the first one is going to be A. That's easy. We're going to write the table data cell, make it span, and we'll come back and put the tables later because they're going to come after this. Okay, so after the A, table data, it doesn't, okay, table data, column span and row span. Column span equals 3, row span equals 3, and I close the table data cell. Okay, and do I need 3 of these in each one? Insert 3 table data cells spanning 3 rows and 3 columns each. So it is 9. So 1, 2, 3 times 3 is going to give us 9 columns across. So I have one of these, and I can copy and paste and get my other 2. So there's one. And they've said to do this in the first, fourth, and seventh row. So the fourth row, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is going to be row D. 5, 6, 7, that's going to be a row G. And yeah, that's correct. Make sure I didn't miss anything in this paragraph. Insert 3 table data cells spanning 3 rows and 3 columns. Altogether, yes. Okay, didn't miss anything there. Like I said, this one step is very big. It's got a lot of moving parts in there. They should have, each paragraph here, they should have given you a separate step for each one. Let's look at our page and see what we've done so far. There's no content in any of those column span 3x3 sections. So they're all going to shrink down to nothing. Okay, but if I click in here, they're just blank. Actually, they're not shrinking down to nothing because there is content in the header on the top and header on the left. But there's nothing to display. They're just blank. So we don't see anything in there. Now we're going to start customizing these a little bit. In the first row of the table body row, first row, this is row A, put the 3 table data cells you entered in the last step in the green box, gold box, and green box classes, respectively. Okay, that means that the first one's going to be the green box, the second one's going to be the gold box, and the third one's going to be the green box. And what that is this box is going to be a green box, this box is going to be a gold box, and this box is going to be a green box. We're going to have to come and write that CSS later, and we're going to put it in the HTML for now. So we can come in and say class equals green box, and I can copy and paste this into here, and I can copy and paste it into here and just change green to gold. That's not very difficult. Double check I got it in the right order. They said green box, then gold box, then green box. In the fourth one, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be gold, then green, then gold. Okay, I can paste and paste and paste and just change green to gold where it needs to be. Change green to gold. And then I can do the same thing on the seventh one. Green, gold, green. Fix my gold here. Okay, so that's this. All right, so a pretty huge step. All right, I think I got everything in there. Let's see if I can get the check mark for that. All right, it was a lot of work, but if you take it slow and double check yourself, you can get it. Okay, next, table data cells. This is the last one on this page, page 2. Go to each of the 9 table data cells you created in the last 2 steps. Within each table data cell, insert a nested table belonging to the subtable class. Table. Within each of these nested tables, insert 3 rows and 3 columns, because it is one of the sudoku areas of data cells. Enter the digits from the example in the introduction section in the appropriate table cells. Where there is no digit, leave that cell empty. Okay, so let's do the first one. All right, starting step by step. They've said enter a subtable, call it subtable, this nested table, class equals subtable. Okay, I'm going to close my table. Get my spacing right. I like to have my spacing right. And then in each subtable, I'm going to put 3 columns and 3 rows of 3 columns each. There's going to be no TH, no headers, nothing like that, only TDs in these ones, okay? So table row, each row is going to have 3 columns. I'm going to type 1, and I like to get my spacing right. And then I'm going to copy and paste my other 2 columns. So this is 1 row with 3 columns. I can copy and paste and have 3 rows with 3 columns. And now in each one of these areas, I can copy and paste the entire subtable. And I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up again like I did earlier, so that as I paste and everything shifts, I can still keep my eye focused on the one above it. That's the next one that I do. So I pasted that. I've done the bottom. Now I can scroll up and I can paste here, here, and here. And I can scroll up and I can paste here and here. So I pasted one of these subtables into each of the green box and the gold box table data cells that we made earlier, the ones with the col span and the row span 3. So this cell, it's going to be 3 rows high and 3 columns across one cell. And inside that cell, we're putting a table, conveniently enough, that also has 3 rows and 3 cells, so that in the end, when you look at it, it's not going to look like there's tables inside of a table. This doesn't really look like there's tables inside of a table. The only way you can tell is you can see that the borders and the spacing are different in each one. And if we just made one giant table, we wouldn't be able to get that properly. The only way to get that effect in between each of these 3 by 3 grids is to put tables inside of a table. Okay. So we have all of that. Now they've told us the last step is enter the digits from the example in the introductory section into all the appropriate cells. So I've got to make sure I scroll back to the top, and I'm going to do, I can't show that page and this page quite at the same time, but I'm going to scroll this over here and put this over here. Let me shrink this to so that it fits kind of just right here. And now I'm going to go ahead and put these numbers in, because this is the same picture. I just have a larger version of it. And what I'm going to do, instead of going across one row at a time, I'm going to do one 3 by 3 grid at a time. And the reason I'm going to do that is because each of those 3 by 3 grids is a subtable. And the only way that I can see one whole thing at a time is if I do one 3 by 3 grid at a time. So I'll start at the first one, this green one. I have a number 4 in the first row, third column. So first row, third column, I have a number 4. I have nothing in the second row, and in the third row, first column, I have a 3. Second column, I have a 5. And then I can scroll down to the next 3 by 3 grid. I'm in the same row, but I'm one column over, and it's a gold box. And so I'm in this 3 by 3 grid. And in the first row, first column, first row, first column, I have 5. And in the third column of that row, I have a 3. And I have no more numbers in this grid, so I can scroll down to the next one. The next grid is this one, because I am still in the same row. I've just moved over a column. In the first row, second column, I have a 7. Oops. 7. And nothing else in that row. In the second row, first column is a 3. Second column is a 1. And then in the third row, first column is a 2. And nothing else in that row. So now I can scroll down, I can scroll past B and C. Those are really just placeholders. They show the B and C over here on the left-hand side. And I can scroll down to row marked D. This is row D, and it marks where I have my first 3 by 3. It's a gold box. So if I get lost, I can use the gold boxes and the green boxes to kind of help me out a little bit. First row has nothing. Second row, column 1 is a 6, and column 3 is a 9. In the third row, I actually have 3 things for the first time. So I have a 4 in the first column, 7 in a second column, and 2 in the third column. And now moving on to the next grid, it's a green box. I'm still in the second row. First row, second column is a 2. Nothing in the second row. Third column is a 9. In the second, put that in the wrong place. I have a 9 in the second column of the third row. Moving on to the last column in the second row here. First row, I have three numbers, 9, 3, and 7. Second row, I have a 4 in the first column and an 8 in the third column. Nothing in row 3. Moving on to the last row of 3 by 3 grids. I'll do this one a little quicker. You probably think that it's boring by now. We got all the way to the third one. All right, row 1, column 3, row 2, 4, and 5, and row 3, column 2 is a 6. The middle grid, the gold box, has only items in the third row, 8 and 1. And the last grid, first row, second column is a 5, third column is a 2, second row has nothing, last row, first column has a 7. And those are all the inputs. So I can take my browser away that has my inputs. Put all those numbers in. Those are the starting numbers for my Sudoku puzzle. Try and get a checkbox if I can. I cannot. Let's see where the mistake is. A 0.03% difference. Okay, I have all those numbers in there. I enlarge this, I can see that the difference is somewhere over here. And I have one character out of place, this number 9 in the solution. It goes in a different spot. I typed one character in the wrong place, so I have to find it. Okay, and let's see here. That is in the second row. Okay, the 2 and the 9 is right here. So the second row of grids, the second grid, second column of grids, and inside of that grid, it's row 3. I put it in column 3. It should be in column 2. So I can find this. It is the row starting with the character D. And that's the first grid. There's the second grid. I put the 9. Uh-oh. Oh, I got the 9 correct. I got the 2 in the wrong place. The 2 in the wrong place. See that? I got to be very careful. One character off. See if I can get that checked off now. See the 2 I got in the wrong place. If I refresh, it appears to be the 9. Well, because the cells grow and shrink based on their content, it looked like it was the wrong one. Okay, so that worked out. I had one mistake in there. I didn't even have to plan it because there's so many things in there. I was bound to make a mistake. All right, got all those. I think that's all of the content we can get out of this HTML page. I believe it's complete. That's great. We should celebrate. That was a lot of table structure we did in there. And what better way to celebrate than to add some color and spacing to our table. Okay. The outer table layouts. That's what we're going to start with. Outer table elements, and then we're going to do some inner table and some inner table elements. Okay, remember it was like we have in our example here, the outer table is this gray box all around here, and it also has the header line on the top and the header elements along the side. That's the outer table. The inner table is each of the individual 3x3 grids. We're going to give them their own styles. Okay, so the outer table, we're going into the sudoku.css. Start by creating styles for the outer table. Go to the table styles section. That's right here. They gave us a nice little comment area for it. Create a style rule for the table element and the table element with the spuzzle class. Okay, they give us 3 sets of rules right here. And first, I need to target the table element that has the spuzzle class. Okay, table.spuzzle, that is a table element that also has the class spuzzle. If I put a space in here, now I'm talking about something else. Remember, now I'm saying a table. Now I'm saying some element of class spuzzle that's inside of a table, but I want an element of class spuzzle that is a table. Okay. And it says we want to set the borders to collapse, and that means like our example from earlier. I think CSS Tricks had that example for us. Let me find the link here. It's a little bit difficult to see the difference on our puzzle, but on the CSS Tricks puzzle, they have a clear example. Okay, here is what the borders look like normally, and here's what border collapse looks like. Okay, so the spacing in between the cells has been collapsed. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to say the way we set border collapse is actually kind of funny because this is one of the very old settings of table. There used to be a table attribute, and it's no longer an attribute. Now it's in CSS purely, but it's called border collapse, and you set it to collapse. All right, so it's one of those funny ones. Very old settings from tables. And then we're going to set the top and bottom margin to 0 and the left and right margin to auto. And what this is going to do, the top and bottom margin set to 0, that's pretty obvious. At the top and the bottom of the table, we're going to have a 0 margin. What the auto on the left and the right is going to do is going to center that table and give you the same margin automatically generated. It'll be the same on the left and the same on the right. So long as your table is smaller than its parent container, there will be some space and it will center it with that margin of auto there. So margin of 0 auto, okay, and something that you should be doing on margin and padding, if you ever have 0 as a value, don't write pixels, just write a unitless 0, okay? Honestly, I cannot remember all of the reasons why. Unitless 0, I think it's from CSS Tricks. When you're writing a 0, margin and padding, use a unitless 0 on marginless padding if you're using 0. If you're using any other unit or any other value, of course, put pixels. If it's 0, just put 0. You'll get better results. I'm going to have to look up exactly why, because I've been doing it for so long, I forgot why. Isn't that funny? Okay, margin 0 auto. When you write margin, you can write them starting at the top and moving clockwise. You can write all 4, top, right, bottom, left. Okay, just like this. The shorthand, if you only put 2 values, the first one is the top and the bottom. The second one is the left and the right. And if you only write 1 value, of course, that's going to be the same value all the way around. I think you can write 3 values as well, but I never remember which one is which, and I never do that. And I wouldn't recommend you do it either for the same reason. All right, we're going to set the width to 90%. Right, that's what it says right here. And that's convenient. The width is going to be 90%, so there's always going to be a 10% extra left over for this margin auto to take up and then center the table. It's going to be quite useful. It just creates a little bit of eye relief around the table on the left and the right hand side. So we have a little bit of space so that things aren't so crowded and jammed together. Okay, and then it's the same on both sides because we use margin auto. We look at our page. Nothing much is happening yet. And that's okay. Something's funny in my CSS. I'm not getting any colors. But I got the check. I'm not getting any colors in here like I'm used to. So I'm wondering if something funny is going on there. We finished this. Now we're going to do some more styles on the outer table. Okay. For every TD element, create a style rule that adds 5-pixel outset gray border. Pay attention to this word gray, okay? G-R-A-Y. HTML has a color coded for G-R-A-Y and another one for G-R-E-Y. Both are gray. They are not the same shade of gray. One is darker than the other. Border, they said 5-pixel, 5px, outset, and gray. Okay, now I'm getting this color in here. Wonder why I didn't get it. Oh, I typed the wrong character. Instead of a curly brace, I did a square brace. And for some reason, it let me get the check on that anyway. That is not fair. Okay, so you see this gray square here. I typed in gray. I'm going to type in the other gray. I'm not noticing the difference in gray, but I'm going to leave the wrong gray in there and see what percentage wrong it gives me. Okay, and then I need to set the width to 33%, and it's pretty straightforward. Oh, 33.3%. They want a perfect 1/3 width on there. I did this assignment earlier on my own, and I forgot to put the 0.3, and it was wrong. Okay, that 0.3 is important. Next, for every TH. Yes.
Hello.
Sorry about that.
So my friend
kicked out, so I had
to join the class, but he's not able to join. Can you enter him?
All right. So where were we? Center the cell text in horizontal and vertical direction.
Who is
so text?
What's happening?
Dipesh want to join the class, but he's not able to. So Yeah, okay. Now he got it, sir. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I just saw that somebody was waiting on there.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. We're at the TH element here. I remember I put the wrong spelling of gray on purpose because I want to play a trick on MindTap and see what they think about it. All right, so now for every TH element, create a style rule that sets the font color to gray. Oops, it's not called font color, it's called color. I'm going to use the correct gray. I only want one wrong gray. And then set the right and bottom padding space to 10 pixels. So right and bottom padding to 10 pixels, but they didn't give us a value for the top and the left. So I could set the top to 0 and the right to 10 pixels and the bottom to 10 pixels, just like they said, and then the left to 0. But they did not specifically say set the top and the left to 0. And the top and left might be set in some other CSS rule somewhere else. And I don't want to override that. So I can set the padding right to 10px and the padding bottom to 10px. So I can use padding right and padding bottom and set them one at a time. And that is exactly what I'm going to do. And have a look at my page. So I have all these sizes and borders now. And you'll see the borders on tables actually look kind of cool. They look shaded, almost 3D. That is how borders work because they've been working that way for many, many years. So remember, I have this wrong gray in here. I want to test out MindTap and see if I can pick up the wrong gray. I've completed this step and see if I can get that checkbox. It should be a no, but it's a yes. Okay, so I put the wrong color in and it's going to give me the right color anyway, or it's going to accept it anyway. This is all the TDs. TD, color, gray, computed, border, one 128. That's the one gray. And the other one goes on TH, and it's the font. Oh, 128 as well. That's unexpected. I thought they were different colors. Well, so much for that. Maybe it's not the case on Chrome. All right, moving on to the inner table styles. So I can scroll down to this little area. I'm gonna hit enter a few times, give myself some space to work with. The inner table, create styles for the inner table that is placed within each cell in your table. So remember, we have these inner tables here, okay? Each each colored grid is an inner table, and we have class name of subtable for that. So we're going to create a style for each of those and give it these couple of settings, okay? And that's easy enough. So table, earlier we had table of class name Spuzzle. Now we're at table of class name Subtable. And our rule is also going to set the border collapse. Okay, remember border collapse is one of the very old table attributes. It's no longer an attribute, but you do set it, border collapse is equal to collapse. Okay, instead of equal to true or equal to some value, we're going to set it equal to collapse. That's because it was set, was created 30 years ago as an attribute before CSS was hardly even used or even created at all. It was an HTML attribute, and it is a holdover from that. These inner tables, okay, right now they are just taking up only as much width as they are using. We're going to set the width to 100% and force it to fill in the gaps. And is that all we're doing in this step? That seems like a very small step. I guess it is. Okay, so we have 100% wide on these inner tables. Not much else going on there yet. Excuse me. All right, inner table elements. For every TD element that is within a subtable element, we're going to create all these style rules. So we've created a rule for the subtable. Now we're going to create a rule for TD elements that are in a subtable. So we're going to be just as specific as we were before, and then add what we need to be able to target those TD elements that are in the table that is a class name of subtable. Okay. The first here is add an inset box shadow with an offset value of 0 pixels in the horizontal and vertical with a blur of 15 pixels. This is a little bit odd because they have not given us a color for that box shadow. Okay, and we're not going to set a color. We're going to take apparently whatever the default color is, or whatever the color is set maybe in some other CSS that's already included. So we're going to do a box shadow, and before I do any other CSS rules, I'm going to open this up and have a look at what that box shadow is. Box shadow, a 0 pixel offset in the horizontal and vertical. Okay, this is not a place where you're going to use that 0 without the pixels. That's going to be margin and padding. Okay, not box shadow. And a 15 pixel blur. And it's going to be inset. We put inset first. Okay, semicolon at the end. The way box shadow works, and we can look up box shadow at the Mozilla developer pages and get the actual syntax of this. Make sure we get a full syntax. So here's just an example. Box shadow, and you can see on the right hand side it's moving around. You can set multiple box shadows and it will perform them in order and layer them on top of each other. Right? You can set inset like this one is, and the syntax for this is, I want to look at the longest one. First comes the inset value, and then the offset value for X, offset value for Y. So this is X is the horizontal, Y is the vertical. Then the blur radius followed by the spread radius. and then the color. So the difference between the blur and the spread is, and let's test out, if I had a blur of 0, that would make the edge of my shadow be a very sharp, crisp edge, not blurred at all, okay? If I had a blur of 1, it would be just blurred just a little bit less sharp than before. And the larger that value is, the more blurry that shadow gets. But that shadow will still stay exactly where it's supposed to be. So if I had a 0 pixel offset in both the X and the Y, and a 0 pixel spread, and when I started blurring it, if the blur was many, many pixels, it would begin to stick out by that many pixels, but it would never travel too far. What the spread does is actually push in all directions, up, down, left, right. It actually pushes that shadow away from the box, or in the effect of an inset, it pushes it toward the middle. And you can put negative values in here, and you can spread in the opposite direction. You can offset X and Y with negative values, so they go in the opposite direction. And you can create some interesting box shadows with these. And you can use a comma and put multiple box shadows, and they'll layer on top of each other. But if they're all the same color, they won't. It'll look like they're being paired up. So you can have a large shadow in one direction and a small shadow in another direction, and pair that up and create some interesting effects. So we just have an inset box shadow, 0 pixels offset both X and Y, and a 15 pixel blur. So if I refresh this page and have a look at what that is, okay, this is the effect that it's given. It kind of makes it look a little bit like a button, I suppose. All right. It'll look better once we have some color in there. And I'm not sure about where it says the color is going to come from. If not specified, it defaults to current color, and we're not specifying it, so we're interested in where that current color comes from. All right, it is a box shadow, so I think that it's going to come from the background color. And we are going to set the background color. I think, let me look at the example. Oh, maybe it's going to come from the text color. It's matching the text. So our box shadow, if you don't set the color, it's going to be the same color as the text. Add a 1 pixel, we finished the box shadow. Next, add a 1 pixel solid black border. Okay, so border 1 pixel solid black. We could type black by using its keyword black or its hex value. There we go. If it's something that I know the hex value of, I do prefer to use the hex value myself. That's just a preference. You can type in whichever you like. The way border works, solid, we have options are solid, dotted, dashed. Let's have a look at some other options here. I don't remember all of them. Hey. Border style. There we are. None, hidden, dotted, dashed, solid, double, groove, ridge, inset and outset. Groove and ridge. I think ridge might be what we currently have. Okay. So now we're going to set it to a solid 1 pixel border, and it's going to be black. Set the text to blue. I don't know the RGB value for plain blue. It's probably just 0000FF. Set the cell height to 40 pixels. The cell height is just going to be height. And then set the center of the cell text horizontally and vertically. Now we've set the text alignment horizontally centered before. That's nothing new. This shouldn't be nothing new to us. Okay, now table cells, you can also set the vertical alignment. You cannot do this in every element. It is not something that works in every element. It's called vertical align. And I want to check the Mozilla developer page for this. All right. Or table cell block. The star is the thing that is moving in this vertical line. And here's a nice example right here. Top, middle, bottom, superscript, subscript. Okay, you have quite a few options for this. Inline, inline block, or table cell elements. So block elements, not going to work. Only inline and inline block and table cells. All right, it does not, vertical align does not work everywhere. I don't suggest messing around with vertical align unless you have a specific goal that requires it, because you do get some funny results when you throw it around there willy-nilly. Vertical in table cells, though, definitely acceptable. And we're going to line it in the middle so that things are not only centered horizontally, but they're also centered vertically. Okay. Refresh our page and have a look at it. It's looking much nicer now. Okay, now we have fully fleshed out boxes here. They have this nice coloring and shading and sizing and borders and all of this that we put in there. We forced the height to be 40 pixels, so that really made things look pretty. We have a little bit more in this step. We have to color the gold box class and the green box class. So the gold box class and the green box class it doesn't say just color the class, because in our HTML, the gold box and the green box is actually outside of the subtable. So we need to color, we need to get the green box and then target the table data cells that are inside of it. Okay, and because green box is kind of a generic term, it's always a TD class green box. I'm going to add the TD in front of it on the off chance that future me wants to use some other green box somewhere else on the website. So the green box, you need to set the background color. And remember, if you're only setting the background color, please use the full background color setting, don't do the shorthand of background, because this is going to potentially override other things that go in the shorthand of background. So if you're only setting background color, please use the full background color. Green box color is an RGB, and they've given us this right here. I'm going to just copy and paste it right from Mindtap. And that's the green box. I'm going to copy and paste again, change green to gold, and copy and paste this RGB color. Put that here. Okay, so I don't even have to type in those numbers. And have a look at our page with the new colors. Looks pretty good. I kind of like the blue though, but green and gold are very useful for keeping an eye on your individual boxes. And I should get this checkbox. I don't think I missed any steps here. All right. I like that little robot. Tells me when I do a good job. You can go ahead and get that final validation. Thanks, little robot friend. Okay, so there is our entire Sudoku page, our Sudoku table. Have another look at the, well, now that we have it, actually, we can have a look at some of the styling in here, how things are laid out. So each row, notice now I'm hovering over rows in here, and it appears to be highlighting the inside contents of what we have, but it isn't, because row B, if I highlight row B, where's B? And I click on it, there is nothing in row B, just the table header with the letter B. And remember, the reason for that is that row A has some column span and row span 3 by 3 in here. So row B is mostly empty, and all that extra space is being filled in by row A, spanning multiple columns and multiple rows. Same thing for row C. And then inside that span, we've created a little table, and we've forced that table to have 100% width, and we forced it to have a good height as well. We've told each cell to be 40 pixels. And as you can see, actually each row is exactly 40 pixels high. Okay, there's our Sudoku table. Real nice. And I'm going to close out the video and process that, and then post it over to Moodle so that you can watch it again and again and again. No, you're not. Maybe once.